Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello all, I'm Marrgyew. I'm a big fan of RPGs, gaming in general, Super NES fanboy, and appreciator of all gross out 90s humor. I stream on Twitch playing all sorts of games, leaning mostly towards RPGs. And currently every Friday, I'm playing through all of the numbered Final Fantasy games, from 1 through 15, and I'm all the way up to Final Fantasy 13. And it's been a wild ride. Sometimes when we're feeling goofy with my community, we like to MS Paint art, which is very cursed, but also kind of wacky. It's fun. But can we talk about Shadow Hearts? Because that would be pretty cool. Shadow Hearts is a horror, gothic-themed RPG. Came out in 2001 in North America, published by Midway. They're the same people that publish games such as Mortal Kombat, Rampage, NFL Blitz, NBA Jam, and Cruisin' USA. It was written and directed by Matsuno Michida, who acted as an art director for Koudelka, the first game in the series. When I booted up the game and saw that Midway graphic, in my youth, I thought, what's the racing game company doing publishing RPGs? When the game started, I wasn't impressed by the graphics. They were very stiff and kind of felt silly. And this is comparing it to Final Fantasy X, which had just come out just a month before. But I was never a graphics guy. As the Super NES and PS1 fan, it was always storytelling over the graphics. So I quickly got over it as the opening scene cut into blood and gore. Things that, in my youth, I jumped right onto. Hadn't seen it in games. But back to the intro cutscene. The player's being taken on a train ride. Something similar to Final Fantasy VII's opening. And a villain in a top hat is walking through this corridor. Or what I thought was a villain. All villains wear top hats, right? And he's getting shot at by these military men. But all the bullets are being blocked and deflected by this invisible blob that's just surrounding the top-hatted man, whose name is Roger Bacon. When the blob finally gets a chance to fight back, it does. It cuts through these military men like they were butter. No effort, and it was just a bloody, gory mess. And when all hope felt lost, the protagonist appears. His hair is the silliest looking thing I've ever seen. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like a spaghetti mess on top of his head. I don't think that was their intent. If you look at the artwork in the game, like profile pictures and everything, it looks so much better. But for this cutscene, it's just super silly. If you were paying attention earlier in the cutscene, he was sleeping under a blanket, so there was a little foreshadowing before it happened. But he stands in the middle of this hallway, and the blob charges him down, and he catches it, and he just crushes it in his hand. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen, and it just got that much more cool when it pans out, and it shows that he sacrificed his left arm to catch this creature. And then he just calmly and coolly picks up his arm, the one that got sliced off, and it just like it slurps back into him. It was the coolest thing I had seen in games. At that moment I was like happy that I had given this game a chance. After that cutscene, you're given a chance to move around, and if you're nosy like me, you've discovered that the game has already preemptively named your character Rude Hero. And after the first few steps, you're in battle. This is where you're introduced to one of the coolest things that I love about this game. It's the Judgment Ring. The best way to explain it is it's the Wheel of Fortune, like a wheel with different points in it, and every time you land in it, it gives you a connecting hit. At the start of the game, you have access to 3 points. Each section has a big portion of yellow, but I always saw it as orange, and a teeny tiny portion of red. Hitting the red gives you an additional damage. I always used to think of it as critting, but in a recent playthrough, I realized it's more of a crit plus. You have a chance to also crit in the yellow. It's a game of chance and skill. If you're really good at it, you'll be smacking those reds, getting additional damage every time. Throughout the game, you can use items to increase the hit area, or decrease it, or even make it invisible. Everything in the game is done through this Judgment Ring system. Do you need to heal? Ring. Solving a puzzle? Ring time. It's a very fun way to keep the gamer engaged. It reminded me of games like Legend of Legaia and Legend of Dragoon or Xenogears, where you don't simply hit X and do thing. It isn't something super complex, but it's just enough to make you feel like you were part of something and you weren't just smashing your way through battle. But enough gushing there, because there's so much more to talk about. Before you can get used to the ring system, you're thrown atop of the train, fighting Roger Bacon, the top hat man himself. This is where you find out one of the other cool features in the game, fusion. Rude is a hero, what the game calls a Harmonixer. He's capable of absorbing the souls of monsters and shapeshifting into some of them. There's 6 different elements and 2 other story-related ones. Each design of these fusion monsters seemed unique to their element. If you knew you were looking at a fire creature, or a wind creature, or a dark creature. And the cool part about it is you got to level them, and then when they got to a certain level point, you can unlock their next evolution. Did I mention it's the year 1913? And this game is based in real-world history. No, don't leave. History is cool. The game is set a year before World War I starts up, and it shows. You travel all over Asia and Europe, starting with being on the Trans-Siberian Railroad, and going to places like Dalian, Shanghai, Prague, and London. The game is filled with references to demons in Japanese and Chinese mythology. The cast is filled with a wide range of characters. Yuri, the root hero from before, is a brawler and fuses with demons. Alice is an exorcist trained in holy magic, reading from a book. Lee Zohan, another exorcist, this game's wise old character, is a mentor to Yuri and wields exceptional magic. Margaret, a spy with a gun. Keith, Valentine, a bored vampire looking for fun. And Haley, a child with ESP powers, but not as cool as Ness from Earthbound. Wink. Yuri early on encounters a man in a fox mask, who matches your style in combat and has the same abilities as you. Yuri passes out and wakes up in a graveyard. This hub is accessed by save points further down the road. This is where Yuri unlocks his fusions, as he only has access to the dark element at first. Also in this graveyard rest 4 masks, taunting the hero. Another mechanic is introduced here. As Yuri kills enemies and bosses, there's malice that collects within Yuri. This is indicated by Yuri's talisman in the menu. A blue is safe, then green, then yellow, followed by red. Once it hits red, the gates of death open up in the graveyard, and Yuri will be hunted down by Foxface. He shows up randomly in battle, and he's just as tough as the first time you fight him. The only way to avoid this from happening is to return to the grave and take on Mask's chosen monster for Yuri to face alone. The game becomes a quest of Yuri and company finding the one who presented himself as Roger Bacon earlier and trying to stop his machinations. The music in this game is fantastic. It was composed by Yoshitaka Harada, and Harada also collaborated with Masahiro Iwata and Yasunori Mitsuda. As I had mentioned before, this game is a part of a series. Koudelka was the first one on the PlayStation 1, which had a different protagonist and played completely differently. Played like a tactical horror kind of RPG. Then there was this game, and then followed by that was Shadow Hearts Covenant. And after that was a game called Shadow Hearts A New World, which again featured a different protagonist. Currently, there is a spiritual successor called Penny Blood in development that was crowdfunded last year and should be released sometime around in 2025. With that being said, I hope one day we will get a re-release on a different platform other than its original. Currently, the only way to play it is on PlayStation 2. It's stuck in the past, unfortunately, which is a shame because it is such a fantastic game, and I wish everybody could experience this game. Hopefully, they'll release it on other platforms one day, because I would love to gush about it with other people. I want to say thank you for having me, and of course, happy gaming.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too, until now.
Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
And Jacob McCourt.
with many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games. The gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Crossplay Conversations debuts on August 1st with brand new episodes hitting every other Tuesday. Help us out by subscribing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers
and happy gaming.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.